Hello and welcome. Today we're gonna be taking a look at some r/PettyRevenge. Thank you for being here. I hope you enjoyed the video. Let's get started. Mom is devilish with her petty revenge. My mom lives in an end-unit townhouse. Her neighbor likes to sit outside on good weather days, but refuses to walk through her own home to get from the front porch to back patio, switching with the sun exposure throughout the day. Because of this, neighbor lady walks to my mom's yard/garden. Mom has doorbell cameras on both her front and back doors. We've caught neighbor lady on cameras too many times to count, ruining the garden. Mom had asked neighbor lady to please stop ruining her garden. Mom has explained dozens of times that it's inappropriate to cut through the garden rather than neighbor lady just using her home. Neighbor lady always responded that, "Sure, it's your yard, but I don't want to accidentally track outdoor debris through my home and I have every right to walk through your yard. After all, if anyone official needs to walk through, they have access. I should have the same right." i.e., employees for utilities checking meters occasionally need access to the back of the building and walk through the yard. The difference is they don't trample the flowers, they stick to the stone path. Mom decided to install automatic sprinklers to keep her garden looking great. Once fully installed, my mom has been able to override the system remotely. Here's where the doorbell camera came in handy. Every time the doorbell cameras alerted mom to neighbor lady walking through the garden, Mom would trigger the sprinklers. Neighbor lady would get soaked. Neighbor lady has rang the bell several times demanding to know mom's watering schedule so she can keep cutting through. Mom kept saying that the system is automated and waters when the system senses dryness. Neighbor lady kept trying to cut through and kept getting soaked. She was trying to learn the sprinkler system schedule. Well, neighbor lady has trampled her last flower finally and has no idea my mom was getting her petty revenge. My mom is a legend in my eyes. I cocked a cricket. I like to think I'm fairly relaxed and chilled out in general. Like everyone, I have a few things that absolutely grind my gears. Also, like a lot of people, I love my sleep, and winding down in the bed is often the best part of my day. I'll be snuggled up, comfy, dazing in that zone where you're both awake and asleep, about to fall into a deep, lustrous sleep. Before I get the chance though, chirp, 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 chirp. Loud, echoing and constant. A lone effing cricket in my ceiling decides now is high time to scream to the heavens that he needs a effing root. What in the ever-flying F is he doing in my ceiling? There aren't any other crickets around. It's not like there's a cricket orgy happening up there. No, he's on his lonesome, and his tracked F knows how far to get there. It's basically the equivalent of a human climbing Mount effing Everest by himself, getting to the peak, and then yelling into the distance, "Please have sex with me, please, anyone who can hear, I'd like to have sex." Effing idiot. My ceiling is kind of high because my bedroom is actually meant to be a study. Somehow the chirping is amplified because of it. When it first started, I threw things at my ceiling to try and scare it quiet, like a tennis ball. I've lost a light bulb or two to that over the years. I maybe get 10 seconds of relief, and he's back at it like a cocky little shit. I can never figure out exactly where he is, and I reckon he knows it. I switched up to small earplugs which dampened the noise somewhat. But the chirping triggered such a deep-seated anger in me that I didn't even know existed. Even being able to hear the slightest noise somewhat resembling a cricket chirp kept me wide awake. For a while I combined earplugs with covering my head with a pillow. Not too comfortable, but once I was tired enough it didn't matter. Once I was sick of squishing a pillow around my head almost every night, I tried bug spray. Using a ladder at 1 AM and spraying your ceiling with poisonous spray that settles across your bedroom is less fun than it sounds. The only reprise I had was that this would be on and off for a few weeks at most. Nights where there were no chirping became glorious. Still, the anger and resentment towards crickets in general built up over the years. Earlier this year I finally got what I feel like is the closest thing I can get to revenge, short of either burning the house down or becoming a full-time cricket hunter with the aim to eliminate them all. I had started listening to soundscapes quietly on my phone speaker whilst I slept, usually things like rain on a window or distant ocean waves. When the chirping began again, I remembered one of the soundscapes I hadn't used yet for obvious reasons: evening cricket. I started playing it, quietly at first, but I could still differ between the soundscape and the F-nut in my roof. I cranked my phone up to max and probably sat staring at the ceiling for at least an hour. It was too loud for me to sleep to, but it was drowning out the actual chirping of the cricket in my ceiling. In my mind, the cricket in my ceiling was desperately calling out to another, trying to mate and pass his stupid ass genes down. My own chirping was overpowering his own. He could chirp all he wanted, nobody would hear him. That cricket had essentially become a straight up cock listening to my chorus of cricket chirpings. That thought brought me more content than I care to admit. I guess my pettiness comes from the fact that, in reality, me playing a recording of other crickets at full volume does absolutely nothing to the cricket. A cricket that cannot feel or comprehend that chirping, which is part of its nature, is annoying the shit out of me. The fact I can get some sort of good feeling about me potentially ruining this cricket's love life is possibly the saddest thing about me. I have absolutely no regrets. Thanks for listening. Rotten neighbor moves in making demands about washer and dryer machines. A few years ago I lived in a 3-unit complex. I lived on the first floor with my roommate. We had a new neighbor move into the second, who I will refer to as Andy. The day I met her, her husband knocked on my door. He told me Andy was in the basement and she wanted to talk to me. I thought, okay, that's weird. So I go to the basement and see Andy sitting on her ass with a toothbrush scrubbing our clothes dryer. She looks effing livid and starts screaming at me about how filthy the dryer was and how it was covered in oil. What she didn't know was that my roommate works operating machinery for a military gun manufacturer. That's his washer and dryer. I patiently let her finish this 10-minute rant and then say, well, first of all, that's not your dryer, it's ours, and we can do whatever we want with it. Secondly, we don't have to let you use it if we don't want to. She apologized and I went back to my unit. But that wasn't the end of it. For months after, she continued to be a monster and possibly the worst human being I have ever met in my life. She was loud, abusive to her husband. We can hear her screaming all the time. She would purposely stomp on the ground at 8 AM when we were trying to sleep because we worked night shifts. She would take our wet clothes out of the wash and dump them on the basement floor, then proceed to wash her own. She was just a miserable, rotten, manipulative person, and there was never a reason for it. One day she pounds on my door again. I answer it. Of course it's Andy, and she's complaining about the dryer again. Livid, screaming, name-calling. I was bored, so I rolled my eyes and said, you know what? F it. You are not to use our washer and dryer anymore. F you. I go downstairs and take her wet clothes mid-wash and throw them on the ground. I reach in the back and unplug both machines. So what is her response? Well, she calls the police, of course. 2 cops show up knocking on my door. I tell them what happened and that it's our washer and dryer. The cops were confused and asked, wait, did you call the police? I said, no, she's just a effing dumbass and might as well have called the cops on herself. So they tell Andy she can't use our equipment if we don't want her and went on their way. Luckily, we were moving out soon. Me and my roommate decided we didn't want to bring the washer and dryer with us on our move. Knowing that Andy couldn't wait to use them again, I decided to snip the plugs on the back of both machines so that she couldn't use them. I unscrewed the back panel and snipped those wires as well for good measure. I still think about her going downstairs with a load of laundry after we had left and trying to turn on the machines. And in the comments we have this. Even more evil would be to only snip the wire of the dryer, so that she would be left with soaping wet clothes straight out of the washer. Hehe. You want to yell and scream at me for asking a simple question? Okay, let's do that. This is a very petty revenge story, but one I think you may enjoy. When I was a teenager, for about 8 months I worked customer service at a shopping center type establishment. One of the parts of my job was issuing refunds when the vending machines didn't work. Basically, you put money in the machine and it doesn't give you the product you paid for. We had a lot of vending machines and you know those things don't always work right. All our machines were numbered and the policy was to ask for the number of the machine and then issue whatever refund they claimed it was. Considering the majority of the refunds were for 50 cents to $1, management basically told us, look, just side with the customer, it's not worth the hassle. Well, one day I'm working when Karen comes up and said that the Coke machine took her money and didn't give her the Coke she paid for. I asked how much money the machine took. She told me 50 cents. I then asked her what was the machine number. Now at this point I fully expected her to not know. In fact, very rarely would a customer know. In cases like that, the normal practice would be to ask them where the machine was located and would fill in the rest ourselves. We wanted to know which machine caused the issue so we could send someone to fix it. Well, instead of saying, I don't know, she freaked out and started yelling. She accused me of being a sexist, a racist. She accused me of calling her a liar. She told me I was a piece of shit for not listening to her. She made a huge scene. She said I was just an angry man because I was stuck in a dead-end job. Actually, as a customer service rep, I was making $12 an hour, and this back in 2007 was one of the highest paid non-management jobs in the store, and I was still in high school. So I calmly waited for her to finish her rant and I said, Miss, I'm sorry, but for every refund I do for a vending machine, I need the number of the machine to issue a refund. You need to go back to the machine and get me the number. It'll be on the front in the upper right hand corner, you can't miss it. She protested. I'm tired and it's on the other side of the store. Can't you just give me 50 cents? I said, sorry miss, my hands are tied. She then called me an a-hole and stormed off. 10 minutes later she returned. The machine number was written on her hand. I smiled, pulled out the paper and took my sweet time filling in the report. Normally I would wait until after the customer left, but I really wanted to add in the solid minute it would take to fill in the paperwork before I gave her the 50 cents. After everything was said and done, I asked her to read my report and sign where it says customer signature, which FYI we never did, but she was special. She took a second to read the report, signed, and I gave her the 50-cent refund and wished her well. I then proudly walked into the back office where my supervisor was and handed him the report, and he laughed his ass off and said, "That was the lady that was screaming, wasn't it?" "Yes." "And you made her walk to the machine, didn't you?" "Yes." "And then you made her sign the refund slip?" "Yes." Good man. Well, that's about it for today. I hope you enjoyed the video. Maybe subscribe, maybe like. Thank you, and I'll see you in the next one.